All right, guys, today's guest is a gut whisperer, the mitochondria magician, and the man who made blue methylene more fun to take in the morning. Whether he's resetting your gut or upgrading your mindset, he's doing it all with science, soul, and a bit of swagger. Welcome to the show, the man who could probably rebuild your gut flora just by looking at you. Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon.
Stronger, harder, faster, healthier, better.
I love it.
How you doing, man?
Thanks so much.
No problem, no problem. That's probably when we always write the show notes. That's probably like the most fun and most stressful thing is we try to figure out a way to like hype up the guest and like try to be fun. And I never tell usually people what the hype is. So hopefully that was okay. That was a good little introduction.
Yeah. I feel like I'm coming into the ring,
Yeah,
Just
I love
nice.
it. Okay, so I texted you asking you what you want to drink while having a fun conversation. You said you love grape juice.
I love the grape juice.
All right. So
Cheers, man.
brother.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
So, first thing. So, what made you say you want the world? Sorry, what made you say you know what the world needs? Better guts and blue tongues.
It's a loaded question. I'm going to say that. But it's, if you have the time, I'll kind of love to like just start off with the gut health piece first.
100%.
Because like right now it's my work has been about maybe 10 years of research in terms of gut health.
Mm-hmm.
Very recently, more mitochondrial medicine. I'd say methylene blue came in about 2 years ago with the research. But to find anything, like we want to help people with things that we've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Like experience is 100%, I believe, the highest form of knowledge, right? Like if you're, so for example, like I grew up very overweight. I was a fat kid, like just put it plainly, and it was kind of interesting to see the trajectory. But at a very young age, I was insecure. I would hunch. I would kind of like hide in my clothes a lot too. Like I would wear baggy clothes. I'd be like, just kind of hiding at the back of the class, kind of silencing my voice, did not want to be seen, just really was just constantly wishing I was someone else. Like it was a really kind of tough place to be, but looking back in hindsight, like I've learned a lot about that and it's definitely guided me on this path. But where I'm going with gut health on this is that no matter what I ate, I would gain weight, like almost instantaneous. There wasn't a meal that went by that was not consumed with like Tums, Rolaids, like those things were like after dinner mints for me. Like it would be like
They were
mint flavored. It was candy. It was like part of the thing. Like I remember like they would be in my coat pocket no matter where I traveled. I would go to like my nonna's house and stuff. I knew there's gonna be pasta, the breads, veal cutlets, all these fried foods. Amazing. But like afterwards, I would have like these massive like GERD attacks and like acid reflux. And I'm like 10 years old. And here's like this like little 10-year-old boy, this little like chubby 10-year-old Italian kid just running around with like acid reflux and GERD, like some like 50-year-old man night shift worker.
Yeah.
Just like I'm medicating on coffee and booze just to get through the day. And it just didn't make sense. Like, why is this little kid experiencing this? So no matter what I ate, bloat like a balloon, just terrible gut health, had no idea why. And as a kid, like I would go into the doctor and it'd be like, oh, like, hey doc, like my tummy hurts, and it's just like, oh yeah, your tummy hurts. Like, here's amoxicillin, like on your way, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not to say that antibiotics are necessarily evil, right? There's a lot of people within, like, I don't know if you're familiar with like Ray Peat in like that community who will use antibiotics for like cellular senescence and like to kind of detox zombie cells. Can be beneficial. But ultimately what they don't teach us is how to compensate for antibiotics. So when you destroy your whole entire gut microflora, then you leave space for more opportunistic kind of fungi and bacteria to just really proliferate and grow. So there was never a question growing up of like, hey, Brandon, like instead of giving you amoxicillin or whatever, penicillin or whatever it is, like how many pops are you drinking a day? Like, oh, like 5 Cokes a day? Like never once was that questioned. How many times you sneaking off at lunch in high school to get McDonald's, never once a question. So these things, when you go on antibiotics and then you go straight into fast food and refined carbohydrates, refined sugars, things like this, you're just advantaging dysbiotic gut bacteria. So it just proliferates and it's just a snowball that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So again, like I have a very long-winded way of kind of explaining these things.
Oh, it's okay. I like it. I want to hear all of it.
Yeah, I think so. For me, diving into gut health, it actually started about first year university. And it started actually from cannabis. So cannabis was 100% a gateway drug for me. It was a gateway drug into like psilocybin and LSD and other psychedelics to kind of know my body a bit better. But when I first introduced it, it was in first year university. And this was a time where I had free reign, like no parents watching me or what I was eating. Everything was deep fried. And it really just reinforced my hedonistic lifestyle. So like, how can I enhance the viewing of Lord of the Rings? Oh, well, I'm gonna order some KFC. I'm gonna get some fried chicken. I'm gonna get some like Pepsi, all these different things. Taste buds went wild. And then as I kind of continued to do that, to like just smoke weed, eat myself to like kind of shame almost, like it forced me to like what now I hear David Goggins talk about, if you're familiar, is like the accountability mirror. Like look yourself in the mirror. And then I had this moment where I was like super stoned and I looked myself in the eyes and I couldn't even do it. Like I would just look away and I hated what I saw. I was bloated, constipated, poor skin, like psoriasis like crazy, like poor posture, about 230 pounds, never exercised. So on my frame, obese. Like that's exactly what it was. And it was like, some things need to change. So I literally Googled, this is like maybe 2011, how not to be sick, how to get better skin, like super simple things. And I got like,
you probably got some wild searches. Like, so wild things that come from that.
So at the time, man, it was very simplistic. It was like, this one blogger was like, oh, like sugar causes acne. So I'm like, so it's like, give up all sugary drinks and fast food and just introduce tea, black tea, green tea for the antioxidant profile. I'm like, antioxidants, like what's an antioxidant kind of thing, So as I went down this rabbit hole, just from that switch alone, I ended up losing like maybe 30 pounds. And then this was what kind of got me under that 200 mark. And then things started to snowball. I was like, wow, like what else can I do? Like my friends at the time were like really into the health space, which like they were a huge guiding light for me, but they were into like intermittent fasting and like all the like breaking your fast with butter coffees. And this is like over a decade ago. This is very, very old, like kind of stuff for them. And it was just such positive influence in my life. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try fasting now. I'm going to fast for a little bit. My brother and his partner at the time were doing like ketosis and keto. And I'm like, what's the keto? I'm like, what is this? It's like a whole new world. I introduced these things. I end up losing another like 15, 20 pounds. I get down to like 150 so I lose about 80 pounds at this time in my life. Everyone's just like, wow, you look amazing, except my nana. She would look at me and she's like, oh my God, like this guy's sick. Like he's going to die,
He needs
like
pasta. Yeah, he needs lasagna.
He needs food.
Yeah.
But this was like my first lesson in just health in general and gut health, was because most diet books, I would even say like 80 to 90% of diet books out there right now are founded on first time success, especially with men. It's very easy for men to lose weight when it's their first time doing things. But what ends up happening is that the more you do it and reintroduce things, the body adapts, gets stored, gets stuck in your little limbic system. Your body does not always want to be in a state of deficit. So whether you're counting calories all the time, macronutrients, your body adapts, like basal metabolic rate adapts. Your body does not always want to lose weight. So what ended up happening is that I did these things long enough for that kind of biological pendulum to swing so far to one side and then just slam back the other way. So like you do keto long enough and you talk to people who've done keto for years, it just doesn't work the same way it did when they first started. Same thing with like long-term fast or OMAD. It doesn't say there's no benefits with it, but it's one of the lessons from that was like, we're seasonal eaters, like big time. Like we need to kind of eat with the seasons and have that natural flow state. And kind of when carbs and fruit and honey are in abundance, like that's nature's way of telling you to get outside, go find your food, have some carbs, move some more. Like January, February in Canada, the ground's solid, like you're not growing anything. So to make sense to have a more kind of animal protein heavy diet, absolutely. So this is the kind of like lessons that I've learned in hindsight. But getting to it is that these things in the short term repaired my digestion. Like I felt great because they were mainly just a Band-Aid solution. Like it's completely just get rid of the thing and then can definitely lower inflammation, but the issue wasn't being aggravated. So I felt like I found the answer. Then later on, digestion starts to get a little bit worse. So the biggest thing is like, you should avoid gluten. You should avoid dairy, like
You
gluten
hear that all the
intolerance.
time, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. But also, like, your microbiome is a muscle. Like, this is just like I was telling you earlier. Like, I've taken like a brief hiatus from the gym, but if I take 6 to 8 months off from the gym, for example, and then I haven't worked out in a very long time, and I go over to one of your squat racks over there, and I put 2 plates on the other side with no warm up and try to set a PR, like, I'm gonna get injured, 100%. It's the same thing when you avoid gluten and dairy for, say, 6 to 8 months at a time. So what's happening, and what I've learned the hard way, is that when you have these foods, you stop eating them, you start to lose the bacteria needed to digest them. So as that begins to die off, then you go to reintroduce it 6 to 8 months later, and then all of a sudden it's just like it reaffirms your echo chamber in a sense of like, oh shit, like that
I
stuff.
am.
Yeah, like I'm gluten intolerant, like that was the issue. So this is a lot of times what we're seeing is that we're not training the kind of gut to redigest these foods. So yeah, again, like long-windedly and long story short is that like I've tried everything and I've failed multiple times at all these different fads, which really led me to believe that these extremes just aren't the answer. Like try to eat with the seasons. I failed on carnivore because I did it for a while, failed on paleo because I did that for a while. And it's, again, not to say that these aren't the answers, but they're fads, they're protocols, they're not diets, they're not a long-term way of living, So there was a lot of things that kind of happened since then. And then, so what actively actually got me into a new state of thinking around gut health was through baby formula. So I started supplementing baby formula back in like 2019.
Okay.
And I was ordering like tubs of Gerbers to the door because they had one specific ingredient called 2FL. It's 2-fucosylactose. It's like a human milk oligosaccharide. It's a human milk sugar. It's what it mimics. And then it was really just getting digestion back to kind of where it started. Introduced this thing, like digestion improved, lactose and gluten intolerance eventually went away.
So sorry to interrupt you. How do you get to that point though? Like, do you know that had that substance in it and you're like, oh, I'm going to try it? Or did somebody tell you should try this?
Yeah. So I actually found it through a book called The Immunity Code. It was author was Joel Green. Found this out like, I think it was back in like 2019 or so. And he's like, yeah, take like HMOs because like the idea was like starting back to the stages of infancy. So when you look at kind of like how the microbiome actually exists and at where it starts within like mother's milk. Like some of the times you have the biggest instances of say allergies, autoimmune conditions, food sensitivities. It's because you were a C-section baby. You weren't breastfed. Like these are key things. You took antibiotics early on in life. But when we look at kind of where the microbiome developed, it was through mother's milk. So it contains these human milk oligosaccharides, these long chain sugars, and they're very bifidogenic. So they feed bifidobacteria, which is like our master bacteria. And as we learn to feed that, then this is what turns on like internal antioxidant production, B vitamin production, all these good things. And then we start to retrain the gut on how to digest these things again. So it's very fascinating. So once that kind of clicked, then it was like, wow, like I was demonizing the foods before. And then I kind of switched over to putting the blame on my on my microbiome, I should say. It was just like, man, my microbiome is what controls digestion. It's not avoiding oxalates and histamines and lectins because bifidobacteria has been shown to degrade these things. So it's a huge lesson I like learned at a young age. But kind of where I'm going with this too, man, is that like a lot of failure has gotten me to a point to better understand my own guts, but also the research. And I'm like, it's getting back to like even my first example is that like my first thing was experience is the highest form of knowledge, is because like if I'm that obese kid, 230 pounds, never worked out in a day in his life, came into your gym and be like, hey, I want to be a personal trainer. I want to train people to lift weights. Like, I don't think you have the experience, man. Like you have to like feel it yourself and do it. And that's what got me into kind of helping people with their guts. Because it was something that like I would be there at a restaurant or a table. And even just like when I first met my partner, dude, we would go out to dinner. I would have like, oh my God, I'm like eating the meal. I'm like, were there onions in this? Like I was just bloating like a balloon. And then like, here I have this like beautiful person in front of me just trying to talk. And all I'm thinking about is my gut. And it's like, I need to fix this. So once I was able to train my body to redigest these foods, that was complete freedom. And that's what kind of unlocked, I think, a lot of the European mentality and like things that we see in like Italy and France and Spain of like no one ages around the dinner table kind of situation, right? So I think we need to kind of bring back that piece, and that's a big part of my philosophy. And then this just kind of snowballed into like, hey, what else am I missing here? The mitochondria is a huge piece, which ultimately led to a lot of methylene blue research. And it was definitely life-saving in terms of like stress and energy and brain fog and all these things. But again, like I think I just talked for like 30 minutes, dude, about kind of the origin.
No, I love it.
And
it's okay.
I just want to kind of leave that with you, and hopefully that makes sense. But
Yeah. No, I love that. So, okay, that is a lot to unpack, but that's okay. I like that. So I guess that, like going back to my question is like at what point you're like, I'm seeing some good studies on blue methylene and I want to start, promoting this and helping people with this compound. Like how did that come about where you're like, I want to invest in this, I want to do this?
that's a very good question, man, because like it came from, of course, my experience first. Like I saw a lot of people in the space talking about this. There was like blogs by like Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey, like from early on. Like I remember hearing on like Ben Greenfield podcasts, like I think back in like 2017 or 2018 or something like that.
It's hard to keep up with all the stuff he's doing. Every time I'm like, okay, that's a good one. And then he does another one. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta write that down.
Yeah.
But that's what I always appreciate about Ben Greenfield is he's always trying different things. I feel like for the people. You know what I mean? And he's he's more than happy to say, okay, this one didn't really work as much. I only felt this, but I'm going to start doing this and whatever.
He was a pioneer. He is.
Pioneer. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very, the guy who's very early stages of biohacking for sure.
Yeah.
So sorry, you were talking about the blue.
But yeah, that's a huge thing too, right? It was like his experience that kind of led me to think about it. The one thing that actually put me off methylene blue in the beginning was it was a synthetic. It's not something that's just like you pluck off a tree. But there's I forget his name, I'm blanking on it, but there's a doctor who's really well versed in methylene blue as well. And he's just like, well, like not everything in nature is good for you, right? He's like, you can go foraging for mushroom, pick something that looks identical to something that's edible, and then all of a sudden you have liver failure. You know what I mean? So it's like, there are some benefits of like things that can be like synthetic that can help save our lives. And it's actually one of the only things that blends the world of Western medicine and more of that kind of holistic nutritionist human optimization space. There's like, I've never really seen anything that crosses that boundary like so seamlessly. Like it's still used in hospitals to this day for like carbon monoxide poisoning.
That's interesting. So when you started using it, were you scared to like start using it? Like you're like hesitant or you're like, let's go all the way?
I was pretty scared.
Yeah.
I was like, not like scared, but like, I'm always like, for me to try anything new, like whether it's even psychedelics, for example, like it took me like a year to build the courage to like microdose mushrooms because I was like, I want to learn about this. I want to know the effects on my body. So with methylene blue is the same thing. Like, what do I expect to feel? Like, what does this actually do? Do I need this? Like, that's a huge piece for me. Because like right now I'm trying to get my supplements down to very little, right? And like, I think that's like the message that I keep receiving, especially on the psilocybin journey. Like I'm huge into kind of plant medicines and like, it's like, give your liver a break, just relax. But with methylene blue, I was a bit nervous because I was like, I don't know what to expect, but there's a plethora of just good data and research on it. So I researched it for a little while before actually building up the courage to take it. I took some, felt absolutely amazing. Like it was like this weight that lifted behind my eyes, like this tiredness.
So you would say it was pretty immediate,
like almost instantaneous for me.
Really?
Yeah.
And how much did you take?
I took about maybe 12 drops the first dose.
Okay.
So like my body's pretty receptive to new things like that. And I also like the practice of even just like kind of like when you take something new, like to enhance that kind of mind body connection, just to kind of meditate on it for just like a moment. You know, even if it's like something like CoQ10 or something you see on a regular basis, it's like, why are you taking this? Like we can blindly take supplements, but I think where we place our mind when we take these things is even more powerful, right? Because that kind of like massively controls the stimulus of what our body experiences. So I just gave it space to be like, okay, I'm just going to like meditate on the effects. And like, I like reading the research because it makes me enhance that mind body visual of like, this is replicating my mitochondria. It's making them work better. So I'm like almost like trying to envision that happening. And then just, yeah, like it was just an amazing experience right off the bat. And then I started to kind of slowly increase dose. get higher and higher and higher, experimented with it for about maybe 6 to 8 months. And then I started getting it in the hands of like my mom and dad. And I was talking to my dad about it too. And he's just like, I'm forgetting less. Because like for us, dementia and Alzheimer's just runs in the family. That's a huge piece of what methylene blue works on, is dementia and Alzheimer's. So he's like, I'm remembering like where my keys are. Like I can like, you know, like where I used to forget everything, like I'm now actually kind of like my recall is increasing. So that proved like very powerful. It just made me happy to see that my parents were having a good
experience.
Yeah, good experience. And I was spending so much money on just buying bottles of methylene blue, and everything came in these 1 ounce bottles.
Yeah.
And I was trying to mega dose and try to experiment with higher doses. So I did that for about a year. Called in like a few different manufacturers because I'm just like, you know what, this is something that the Canadian market is lacking right now. And it's something that I want to bring in to, especially like the GTA in Toronto and Ontario. Like it's just, there's a lot of cool people that we've met and who have tried our product, like yourself and your crew here as well. So I'm like really grateful for that.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, it's powerful stuff, man.
So I wanted to ask you, like, on top of that, so when you were outsourcing blue methylene, like, what was the process of that? What was the process of trying to bring it into the market?
Very, very good question, man. Because the thing with methylene blue is that you have to be very careful on sourcing, typically. There's some bad sources out there that we've seen and come across.
How do you, sorry to interrupt you, how do you, like, obviously we want everybody to buy your blue.
Yeah.
But, like, how do you know that?
So it should come with USP grade certification. It should be third-party tested. So USP is just like the kind of standard pharmacopoeia of testing for heavy metals to make sure that it is the least amount possible when you're coming for like any kind of heavy metal toxicity, because a lot of this stuff would be used for fish tank cleaners, like way back when.
Yes, I did read that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild.
Yeah, man. So some people would be like, oh, like, you know, that's the kind of thing. It's like, oh, you're taking fish tank cleaner. You know, of course, it's a very good antibiotic. It's good for anti-parasitic properties and all these good things. But we want it for human consumption to be as clean as possible. So the problem with methylene blue that we faced actually wasn't through the USP testing, because you can go through third-party labs, right? And you can get this tested not only through the actual manufacturer, but you can get the actual sheets that they're like, the data that they're testing for, to say it's like, this is good to go. The problem in Canada is that it can't get an NPN, can't get a natural product number. So when we sell it, like all methylene blue that you see on Amazon or any site, it comes for research purposes only. So the kind of,
that's how they get across the red tape.
Yeah. So that's like kind of wink, wink, like do your own research, you know? So we can point people in the right direction. But it's one of the things that we always say, it's just like, as kind of a precaution, it's like use at your own risk, right? But this is sold for research purposes only, which is all methylene blue. In the States, it's a bit different. Like States, it's a bit easier to kind of get into.
They're more open with their supplementation over there.
Absolutely. So Canada's a bit tricky, but we're hoping to also kind of get this, because right now, like we use an American manufacturer, because there's no manufacturers in Canada who will like sell to us.
So what's that going on right now to get it back here?
It's not. It was a bit hiccupy like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right now it's okay.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Right now it's good.
Okay, solid.
Yeah, so it's not too bad. It depends on like how much we order and like take in at once. So yeah, that's going okay, which is nice. But it's really interesting, man. Like transitioning, because we've been, like me and Rach have been in the client space for a long time, and we still are. We still help people with gut health. We still help people with methylene blue and coaching them through and whatnot. But transition into the product market is very, very interesting. It's a big change, and it's kind of like what we wanted to do for a long time, is to start our own supplement company, and this is like our gateway in. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Why'd you choose the name Paradigm Supplements?
So our original business was The Nutritional Paradigm.
Yep.
And The Nutritional Paradigm is a mouthful, right? So paradigm is kind of lacking on that idea of like what we are. Like we're trying to go on more so of the cutting edge. And that's what we've tried to do for many years in terms of our gut health and coaching, is like to see both sides, to see like, to bring kind of like a new paradigm to the market of like Eastern philosophy meets like kind of like the Western doctrine, right? And like that's a big piece for us, is like, what other pieces are we missing? And so the nutritional paradigm came about when we started our own business back in 2021. That's when it kind of came about. And then it so far advanced, it's like, okay, well, paradigm. Paradigm is the name that we're going for. So
I like it.
yeah.
So I want to ask you, how do you explain the gut-brain connection to someone who still thinks gut health is just avoiding Taco Bell?
Bro, like, that is a very good question. I don't know if I've ever had that conversation with someone who's just eating Taco Bell. But I think if they're just eating Taco Bell, then they're experiencing it.
Yeah,
And if
they
you
should.
say it's fine, I think you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Because really the gut, if it is our second brain, you know, like when we think about the gut to the brain, it has access to the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, it looks like a tree almost. Like if you see diagrams of it, it's like this, like the root network covering the gut. And then it stems up to the brain and it's almost like branches out like a tree. And that's like that cross communication of the gut brain axis. So there's so many things that can be involved within like improving that gut brain connection. But if you are eating refined foods, like food-like product is what I would deem Taco Bell. Like, I don't think much of that is actually real. You're not going to get these things were not grown without pesticides. It's not organic soil. It's not organic farming. It's like 30% real meat or something like that. So when you're consuming these food-like products, you're really just dampening all the kind of connections to the brain. Like you're not getting a good relay, and it will speak for itself. Like, yeah, you'll get a dopamine rush. Like it checks all the boxes of dopamine from food. It's, you know, it has like a little bit of sugar, it has some fats, it has like salts, it has everything to kind of hit the mark of dopamine. So you'll get that instant relief, but then afterwards, how do you feel? Right? Like you'll have awful poops. Like,
Yeah.
well, like if you're,
I mean, there's memes about it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like how to clear out the colon. But unfortunately, it's clearing you out of good bacteria, right? Like that release is not clearing you out of bad bacteria. So like if your eyes are the window to the soul, I really think your poop is the window to your health.
Wow.
It's like you
That's
want
a good one.
if you're seen like literally like just to kind of be a bit unhinged at this moment, like just a hot mess in the bowl every single day,
Right.
or even every other day or whatever, you should be moving the bowels.
in the bowl.
You should be moving your bowels every day,
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
If it is liquidy, inflamed.
So okay, that takes me to my next question. Is like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know your gut is wrecked?
So another good question. A lot of people that I've seen before, clients will use like GI maps and fecal testing. For me, too expensive for the average individual that you're dealing with. No one really wants to send like $800 poop samples just to kind of get a reading like, oh yeah, I already knew my gut. Intuitively, I knew my gut was off. And now it just says that I have a lot of bad bacteria. So what do I do? Like you're still in that same place. It's just that we're really busy looking for that diagnosis. We're really busy looking for that kind of that label on things. But intuitively, if you want to do this the very inexpensive way to see how your gut health is, are you gassy and bloated after every meal? That's like step number one. Like that is a sign your gut is off. If it's every meal, like if you have a ton of chickpeas and raw onions and garlic, you're going to get fermentation of butyrate, which creates gas, like 100%. Is like the Bristol stool chart. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it has like from 1 to 7. And it shows what your stool is like. So like 1 being almost like kind of like rabbit poop, like just like pebbles. It's like very dehydrated and slow and sluggish. And then 4 being what you want, which is like kind of like just smooth and like your classic kind of like log. If I, we could.
Okay, man.
Sorry, man. I think talking about poop is really important because we don't do it enough. It was the first book that we all read, you know.
My mind's still wrapped in a hot mess in a bowl situation.
Yeah, that's Taco Bell food.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, and go on. So that's number 4.
Yeah. So, and then number 7 would be like your Taco Bell poops. Like that would be like your inflamed, wet, kind of loose stool. And like that's typically a huge sign of GI inflammation and just like Crohn's and colitis and things of that nature. Right. So that's one way of assessing. Like we have the Bristol stool chart. How does your stool look? Easy one, smell. Like if you have legit gas that smells that can clear out a room all the time, inflamed. Like that's a clear sign. It should not be. Like you can get your poop and farts to smell like nothing. Right. And that's like kind of what we want to do is when you start optimizing the right bacteria, when you start eating the right foods, you will start to notice that the smell drastically decreases.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get like a Bristol 4, doesn't stink, that's it. Like you've won, you know, like you've done it, and whatever you're doing, continue to do, because like you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of basic protocols of how to get there, one of the major things we always utilize is HMOs. You don't have to use baby formula anymore, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
Baby formula in itself is a horrible product. Like there's so many additives, yeah. It's all preservatives, it's soybean oils, and just kind of like the whole industry definitely needs a rethink of baby formula, but it's where I was able to get 2FL. So like if you look on the label of Gerber's, you would see like 2FL, and it stands for 2-fucosyl-lactose, which is like the main milk sugar utilized within human breast milk.
Mm-hmm.
It's of course synthesized from cows. You're not actually getting it from humans. But when I was using this in like 2019 or so, it was the only way I can find it. So like I'm scooping Gerber's into my protein shakes. My fiance's dad is just like staring at me. He's like, I'm not even gonna ask, you know, just. But it tasted fine. Like it kind of tastes like it. Like if you have like a whey protein shake, it kind of just goes with that kind of dairy profile.
Okay.
So then finally, a company that I use, Lair Origin, I've been using them for the last almost 5 years now. They came out late 2020. Came out with a product that was just HMOs, like just on its own, and that was like revolutionary. But it changed the way I thought about gut health, because I used to just rely on probiotics. And probiotics, I would overuse them, which a lot of people do.
How do you know if you're overusing them?
If you're taking them every day, you don't need to take them every day. Like probiotics, I think work in good spurts of like, say 2 to 3 weeks at most. Take a break, continue on. But the one thing I also learned is always take with food. And if you can, break the capsule open and mix it into like something like yogurt or kefir or just the food you're consuming. Mm-hmm. Because I ended up giving myself SIBO from probiotics. I really thought it was the answer. I was like, I have to do this. Mm-hmm. And I was spending hundreds of dollars on the best probiotic. Nothing helped me. Made me like, I don't know if you're familiar with SIBO.
I'm not.
It's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Mm-hmm. So when you compare the colon to the small intestine looks relatively sterile in terms of the amount of bacteria that the colon has. The colon is what controls 70 to 80% of the microbiome. Mm-hmm. That's where it like mainly exists. So when you ingest a capsule, especially on an empty stomach, you can't guarantee where it opens. So if that capsule is constantly opening up in the small intestine, you're getting the right bacteria in the wrong place. And then it starts to proliferate good bacteria. And now once the bacteria is all in the small intestine, you get horrible symptoms, like just acid reflux, constant gas and bloating. And you can do like tests for this. They're pretty affordable. You can do like SIBO breath tests for like $65 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they test for like what kind of bacteria you're producing. But yeah, so all in all, like what I learned is like the prebiotics is where it's at, because the prebiotic is almost like the soil. And that's what HMOs are. They're prebiotics. So what it means is that when you digest them, they don't get digested. They actually kind of make their way to the colon. And as they get there, they ferment and they feed good bacteria. And more specifically, like HMOs, they feed bifidobacteria, which is like our main gut bacteria that we should be focusing on. Because that's like the infant microbiome. It's like 80 to 90% bifido. Mm-hmm. And this is why like kids growing up, they can just digest whatever they want. They're bouncing off the walls. They're just so high energy because they're constantly producing, their bacteria is constantly secreting B vitamins. You know, like they're not taking a B complex to get energy. Yeah. Our good bacteria should be doing this. So those prebiotics are like the soil. It's like the foundation. Mm-hmm. And then the probiotic is like the seed. So if you're going to start a garden and your backyard's just full of cement and you start sprinkling seeds of flowers there, you might get some growth between like the cracks, right? It's not going to look nice. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, depending on how you kind of see it, but like what kind of garden you're going for. But it's also like you're going to get some growth, but nothing's really going to stick. Mm-hmm. But when you can actually remove that cement, retill the soil, like add some fresh soil to it in general, then the actual seeds will start to sprout. And that's how we kind of see the probiotics. So prebiotics are like the soil and the foundation. And then as you start to introduce the probiotics, this is what can kind of help proliferate. But again, that's just the kind of little thing that we want to do in spurts here and there.
Is there a good brand that you like, that you use?
For probiotics, I like a few single strains that I've had really good success with. Mm-hmm. So there's Bifidobacteria BB536. There is Bifidobacteria brev B3. These are things that it's from a Japanese company. It's called Morinaga milk. Fantastic probiotics. Even the one Align, I have no affiliation with the brand. And you can get this at Costco, for example, but I think it's Bifidobacteria. The code on it's like 36524 or something like that. So these single strains are really powerful. But when we use these together, just use them for spurts, and they're really, really good. And then always combine that with like food and a good prebiotic, like say HMOs, for example. That's a really, really good one. And just like getting like fermented foods, getting it like the old natural way, like eating raw vegetables. That's a really good way to ferment good bacteria.
So how fast can you fix a wrecked gut, I guess, would you say? 2 to 3 weeks, so you can really hunker down and make things a little bit better?
I don't want to make any guarantees, you know?
No, I know there's no guarantees, but if you're doing all the right things, how long until you should be feeling a little bit better if you're doing all the right things?
So on the bright side, the gut microbiome is rapidly modifiable. You can see a difference within 3 days. Just take like 3 days, like taking HMOs. Like you can really feel a difference, and you start to see it in your poops. You start to see it in brain fog just kind of going away. So you can kind of get some really good advantages very soon right off the bat. But also persistence is the practice. If you've been suffering with gut issues or any issue for say 3 years, it's like sometimes we'll say to like clients is like, you know, we're all looking for that overnight fix, right? But like if you've been suffering with these symptoms of say Crohn's and colitis for a few years, like you better expect that it's going to take that long to actually heal the issue, because we really need to reverse a lot of things. The body needs to relearn. It's been in a state of inflammation and pain for so long that it's almost like there's a psychological component to it too. But biologically, like you can see major differences within like 2 months. Like, and especially reversing food sensitivities, you can do that within 2 months for sure. So
yeah, that's pretty good timing.
Yeah.
What's something people get wrong about gut health? Or is there something like you see like on these like influencer pages and you're like, that's not right?
Demonizing food.
Like Taco Bell. I'm just joking. No, but demonizing food. What do you mean by that?
If Taco Bell was food, then maybe.
That's true. It's not food. It's like 33%. Like
I'm just ripping on Taco Bell right now.
It's okay.
It's
we'll cut them out.
To preface, like once in a while, like you want to like enjoy and just have some flavors. Maybe it's nostalgic, you know, like maybe
you're in grade 9 and you walked it, you know, I get it.
Yeah. And like, you just want to have those flavors again. No judgment, you know, because like, I think we're just too hard on ourselves, right? Like if you're having Taco Bell and you're telling yourself that inner narrative of like, oh, idiot, you know, like why are you doing, you know, this isn't good for you. That is more detrimental than the food itself. Because this is the first brain, that's the second. We always have to remember that, right?
So, but going back, you're saying demonizing foods. That's what bothers you when you see stuff like that online.
You see people saying eggs are toxic. Oatmeal is the worst food on the planet. Never eat kale. Man, I don't know if you've traveled to like Asia and Europe. No one's talking about any of the shit that we're talking about here in North America. Like you go to like Spain, like it's 3 p.m. Everyone's having some wine, eating tapas, just talking, conversing. No one's talking about plant anti-nutrients. It's not to say that doesn't exist, but I think we need to challenge that idea of fear-mongering that we have here in the West. And we need to talk about why we're experiencing these issues. It's not to say that when I talk about plant anti-nutrients and demonizing foods, like for example, like I'll say like, always avoid gluten, right? They're like, okay, why? Well, it's high in zonulin, the protein that breaks through the gut lining. Well, when we look in the research, high populations of bifidobacteria in your microbiome rapidly degrade zonulin. Why is it that we're having so many issues, but when you go to Italy, for example, people are like, oh, like this is what we see on Instagram a lot too, right? It's just like, you go to Italy, my gluten sensitivity just went away. It's gone, right? It's like, I can have so much pasta and pizza. I experienced this many times, but it's also like, when you think about it and you look into it too, is that Italy's number one importer of wheat is Canada. Like I used to live in Japan for a little while too. Like their number one importer of wheat is Canada. Canada like exports all their wheat to these countries. So a lot of times, like say if you're in Rome, going to some of the touristy areas and you're having a pizza, you're most likely just eating Canadian wheat on foreign soil. So like,
Italians are rolling. Like, no way.
no, but like the thing is though, is that it begs the question of like, we're constantly looking to demonize one thing and that one smoking gun, that one cure-all pill, but there's nothing, it doesn't exist. Like there's multiple guns, multiple bullets pointed in every different direction, because ultimately it's like when you go to Italy, you're less stressed, right? Like you go to France on vacation, like,
You're on vacation. You're relaxed.
yeah,
Your cortisol levels are low.
you're not in the office sitting for 8 hours. You're not commuting to work in rush hour and maybe a little bit of road rage for some people, and like,
You're walking more,
yeah, you're walking
right?
more.
Steps and walking helps a lot with digestion.
Yeah, you're exposed to natural light and sunshine, which helps improve metabolic rate and overall digestion as well. Your mitochondria is working better from all the red light from the sun. You're getting access to better water supplies, because we know that a lot of places in these countries treat their water better, reverse osmosis and remineralization of their water treated with UV rays. Here it's like we just pump it with chlorine, chlorazamine, and fluoride, and we find traces of everyone flushing down their kind of medications down the toilet. That all gets into the water supply. And chlorine and all these different chemical additives don't kill it off. So we're containing a lot of xenoestrogens from our water, right? So having a water filter is really important. So all these things they play a role. Organic farming, right? We don't subsidize organic farming in like where we live. So these things all play a huge role. So when someone is saying, hey, like oatmeal is the most toxic food, I think they're doing fine in Ireland, having steel cutouts for breakfast. Like free range cows, they're doing just fine.
Yeah.
Eggs, I'm doing fine. I'm having some eggs here and like there. But when we get too strict and restrictive and try to have tunnel vision and reinforce our echo chamber, which is the biggest problem with social media, is that we're only looking for things that kind of reinforce what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And if someone is saying like, hey, like this is why you should not be eating this food, I think like they're full of shit. Like I think it's like, it's not the way, like, and you travel to other parts of the world and you start to see like, yeah, you go to Japan and start talking about the carnivore diet, and it's just like, what, why?
Yeah.
But so there has to be another issue to it, and it's not to say that carnivore and keto and these things don't have its place, because I'll actively still use them, but they're protocols, right? They're protocols. Mm-hmm. And it's like to make sure that we're not addicting to the method that got us to the healthy state, is that if we're focusing on repairing the mitochondria, repairing the gut microbiome, they will do the heavy lifting for us. Like our gut bacteria, like we're merely just their vehicle. And like they've had their form in the mitochondria way before we had any type of consciousness in our skin and things of that nature. So like treating them well, they'll treat us well.
What role does like psychological health have to do with like gut healing?
It's another good question, man. Because like sometimes like I found myself getting way too into the biology of things. Mm. And one thing that kind of always resonated with me is that if you can't digest your thoughts, you can't digest your food. So with that, it's like, where's your mind when you're eating? Are you constantly thinking about the calories? Are you constantly thinking about the macronutrient ratios? Right? Because the body wants to play. The body wants to like have fun. It's intuitive. And we've lost a lot of the intuition. Right? So we're kind of like drowning out that voice. But yeah, it's what was like the original question again? I feel like I'm like,
so I guess like what's the role of psychological like health on like gut healing, right? Because you answered the first part, like a lot of people overthink things, mm-hmm. right, when it comes to the food and stuff like that. But also, I mean, there's been a lot of good studies of people cleaning up their gut health and feeling a little bit less depressed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, what's your opinions on that?
There's a huge correlation between, again, that gut brain axis. Like if you're constantly eating Taco Bell like every single day and you're not getting the right nutrients to really shuttle that gut brain axis, and you're creating a lot of inflammation in the gut, which the body is allocating so many, like all your resources to really close the gap in the gut lining, the breaks, the endotoxins seeping in from all the dysbiosis and whatnots. So you have no resources to really focus on the central nervous system, to really focus on the myelin sheath of the brain, the actual kind of neurotransmitters. But the way I see health is there's three pillars mainly. And this is kind of what's always made sense to me, is that first and foremost, there's your psychology and spirituality. Mm-hmm. because realistically, like I remember reading a paper from the 90s, and it was on the nocebo effect in lactose intolerance. Is that people gave themselves like a lactose intolerance just on their thoughts of like, no, I can't eat this, and it kind of worsened the effects.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that like with clients and stuff like that. They're like, and
Yeah.
lactose intolerant. I'm like, no, you're not. You just eat a lot of that.
Yeah.
Like, so 100% the nocebo is a thing.
Yeah. And there's always a quote from, I don't know if you've heard of Richard Alpert, Ram Dass.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one who kind of started the kind of psychedelic revolution
Okay.
at Harvard in the 60s, him and Timothy Leary.
Okay.
But there's something he always said too, is just like, you can seek enlightenment from pizza and beer. And it's like to show that the mind controls everything. Like if you can get control of the monkey mind, if you can get control of your breath, you can really visualize positively just the digestion just working well. Right. So like there is that possibility. Can I do that? Absolutely not. If I have pizza and beer like constantly, I'm just going to be inflamed the next day and I'm going to regret it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But like, it's not to say that that isn't a possibility. But overall, like I think there's also like even in traditional Chinese medicine, there's a huge emotionality. Like each organ system has been shown to have an emotional kind of reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the gut is the biggest center of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And like think about like even in what we see in media and movies, right? Like someone scared shitless, right? Like this is a sign of like you were scared so much that you literally pooped your pants.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like, like if you're nervous or something, you have like a nervous belly, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
like, it's funny you say that because Stacey and I were talking about just nervous bellies about things in general. But so my parents are divorced. Actually, well, they were never together really. But anyway, but whenever I was going from my dad's house to my mom's house, constipated, aches and stuff like that, but I never ate anything bad. It was just like I was so nervous about the situation that I caused so much pain in my stomach for no reason. And I never have stomach issues, never had any of that stuff. So, and the moment I let go of that, I never had that.
Like that's
right.
Yeah,
but as a
like,
kid,
this
you're like,
is-
oh, like my stomach hurts, whatever. It's nervous belly.
that's
It's a real thing though.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Because like you got to think about too, like in like when I say like if you can't digest your thoughts, you can't digest your food. Like when you're in that state of fight or flight, like your digestion is not optimized, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also like if there's like arguments in the family at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
like this stuff like takes its toll. If you don't have the proper coping mechanisms to really understand what you're going through in that kind of situation, then a lot of the stuff gets stored in the body.
Internalized.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that kind of leads to like the second pillar from what I'm kind of talking about for the three is like your subconscious is your body. It's what you store. Everything else that's like stored in here, it's your heart. When I was a kid, kind of hunching over and scared to be seen, scared to speak up, that was a kid who was just trying to protect his heart. From what I later learned on like a really amazing guided kind of psychedelic journey from like a practitioner in Toronto. I won't name drop him, but he's amazing.
Yeah, you'll tell me after.
I think people in the space probably know who he is, but yeah, I'll tell you after. He's fantastic. But he was working on like the kind of solar plexus, and then all of a sudden, all these thoughts just came back from just me as a kid, just trying to protect my heart. And that was what formed a lot of my poor posture, which was just like it wasn't because like when we like I don't know, I'm not sure like how old you are, but
How old do I look?
I'm not going to answer that. You look very young. You look very
34.
You look very young. Yeah,
34.
I'm
Yeah.
32 now.
Okay.
So, yeah, like that question always throws me off, dude. Like, it's I'll have like people ask
Are
me
you
that
blushing?
sometimes. A little bit.
It's okay.
Could be the wine. Could be the grape juice.
It's definitely the grape juice. I'm 34.
You look good though, man.
I appreciate it. Methylene blue.
Yeah, it's a methylene blue. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of lost my train of thought there, man.
I'm 34.
34, 32. Yeah. So when we grew up, like there wasn't a lot of laptop use. It wasn't a lot of like screen usage. Like I know like we were kind of that age of like we kind of missed that piece. Like we didn't grow up straight into iPads. We didn't go straight up into
100%,
phones,
yeah.
right? Like we were outside more. So a lot of that hunch wasn't because I was at my desk going like this. Like that didn't really happen. It was because I wanted to protect myself. And like this poor posture just escalated. And as it did, it's just like, that's the other piece. The other pillar is like, your posture is a huge piece on your digestion as well. It's a huge piece on blood flow to your brain, to your just personality, to give you like the blood to fuel your thoughts. Because if you're like this, hunched over like a shrimp, then like your organs don't have space properly to contract and expand, right? So like your kidneys can get squished. Like I had a very bad like just like pelvic tilt as well growing up. So like again, like if your pelvis is tilting, like the gut is being literally cinched. So like you don't have proper blood flow and just space for your food to be digested. So this is a huge reason why we see gut issues as well. And just other kind of organ issues like kidneys and things like that. They're just taking too much pressure from poor posture. And we see that more than ever like these days. And then lastly, I see like the third pillar is like your microbiology, is like really getting on like into the kind of nitty gritty and seeing the cells for what they are, understanding the microbiome, understanding the mitochondria, and then just seeing how they all play a role. Because I think this is not something that we should avoid. We shouldn't be avoiding our physical exercise. We shouldn't be avoiding like our mindset. We shouldn't be avoiding like our gut microbiome and mitochondrial health. So when someone, I think for me, says like, oh, like only this is the answer, I think like you're just another guru or kind of
Trying to
fake guru, just trying to, just trying to captivate an audience because it's this very one thing that's easy to fix. But I'm really big into just trying to encapsulate the kind of like Eastern philosophy with like the Western kind of style. And for me, like traditional Chinese medicine being around for thousands of years is like a really good gateway into that.
Well, it stands the test of time. Like it's still going on for a reason.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Right? So what you talked about a little bit earlier, but what other supplements do you use? I read that you've on your social media that you've talked about berberine.
Berberine, yeah.
Right. Your glucose disposal. What other supplements? I know you said you're trying to make it a little bit smaller, but what supplements have you played around with that you've liked?
Yeah, so I would actually, with berberine, I would be careful of using that daily. Okay. Berberine is something that you want to use kind of sparingly. It's a very good glucose disposal agent. It's very good at activating AMPK, which is our kind of longevity pathway. And AMPK directly opposes mTOR. So mTOR, like
mTOR pathways.
Yeah, so this is like your mechanistic target of rapamycin.
Yeah.
This is a huge thing that bodybuilders try to amplify.
Yes.
So for building muscle or want to focus on building muscle, you can take berberine before, but just don't take it after, right? Because this is like
makes sense though.
You want mTOR to be fully activated
for the training.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're taking this like berberine on kind of rest days, you're taking it before very large sugary meals, and you're kind of like worried about like adipose tissue being stored, like fat overall, it's like berberine can definitely help. It's very antimicrobial and things of that nature. Berberine is something, again, I use very sparingly. On a day-to-day basis, I'll do creatine typically. I'll do a lot of amino acids. I really like supplementing taurine, tyrosine. Sometimes I'll do like kind of like cycles of tyrosine just to kind of like help with cognitive function, thyroid function, like just because it helps build dopamine as well, which is really important. So yeah, like right now I'm taking a break. I haven't taken really anything in the last like 2 weeks. So I'm like fully just kind of like taking a break. And I think it's really important to take those breaks because also getting back to the kind of Chinese medicine approach is like, it would be like kind of taking things 4 to 5 days on, 2 to 3 days off. Right. And this goes for like even how I use methylene blue. It's like I'll do like typically 5 days on. My most kind of like taxing days, I'll take methylene blue. And I'll do that with like typically all supplements. And then, yeah, like I've experimented with pretty much like everything that there is under the sun, man.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to talk a little bit more about blue methylene. So I've also read that it helps with absorbing UV rays, being in the sun. And that.
So there was actually a massive study that showed it increased its antiviral properties. So it's very interesting too, because we see a lot of viral replication coming through nitric oxide. So as we know, in terms of like, say, bodybuilding or strength training, we want to actively dilate the blood vessels. We want to pump as much nitric oxide through. But when we're sick, like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you've had like say 2 weeks in a row, you're just grinding in the gym and afterwards you get really sick, I don't know if you've ever experienced that
Sure
before.
I have. I don't remember it on my head, but I'm so sure I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Sometimes when you have a bit too much nitric oxide, it can, like, there's one thing called inducible nitric oxide synthase, so INOS, and this is a huge inflammatory mediator for the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're constantly using like citrulline and a lot of these nitric oxide potentiators, it can expedite viral replication.
Interesting.
So what methylene blue does is that it inhibits nitric oxide. And this can actually be very good for longevity, but it also helps in terms of just stopping the virus. What's also interesting is that when you're in the sun with, say, no sunscreen, and you can naturally just kind of absorb the UV rays, it increases nitric oxide. Together, they form this like very interesting kind of combination where methylene blue has been shown to better absorb UVA rays, blue light, and red light. And as it does that, it makes the virus more susceptible to be targeted. So when you're taking methylene blue, like, and then you're in the sun all day, you're going to notice way better effects than just taking methylene blue alone.
So let's say I went for like a 10K run, 15K run, and I took some methylene blue before.
Perfect. Especially because you're outside in the sun and like again, like I don't want to kind of make the conversation, I think, too much about like the sun and kind of like melanin, because this is like topics that I think like there's other authorities in the space that can really, really hammer this home, and I don't want to kind of butcher it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like, it's a big piece of just like getting out in the sun without sunscreen. If you burn really easily, then just being very cautious, and because you don't want to burn. But the more melanin you have is fantastic for your health. Like melanin is absolutely amazing. So, oh, sorry.
No. Keep going.
If you are out for a run,
Mm-hmm.
the sun is hitting your skin, you've taken methylene blue beforehand, you are activating so many different parts of just cellular activity. It's absolutely insane. So something like that can be so powerful in itself, because methylene blue will increase oxygen consumption. So we are now seeing a lot of like professional swimmers, marathon runners, and just people who are active in the cardio space taking methylene blue, because it's enhancing how much your cells can take in terms of oxygen. So you'll start to see that your time to exhaustion goes way up.
And when's the time to take that before training?
You'll feel the difference with methylene blue within like 20 minutes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a 20 to 30 minute kind of situation. But
Yeah.
you said before it inhibits nitric oxide. So if you're doing like a bodybuilding workout, let's say, is that not the best time to take it?
I'd say taking it before bodybuilding.
Yeah.
If you're a bodybuilder, like maybe take it on your off days.
Mm-hmm.
I think is
But
just
if you're doing
safe.
endurance work and
In-
stuff like,
Yeah.
you would maybe say to take it more then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so. I would say take it beforehand. That goes like, it's the same kind of concept with berberine as well. You know, like before the workout, you can take a lot of like, even with like antioxidants, you know, like if your goal is say just to lean up and fat burn, then taking things like EGCG, like, like the main catechin found in green tea, taking like berberine, alpha lipoic acid, CoQ10, these things before workout can really help with fat burning. But if you're taking antioxidants post strength training, when we've kind of activated the inflammatory response, antioxidants can really just help blunt the progress that you've just done.
Mm-hmm.
So like saving that for the next day, if you haven't taken it before, is pretty powerful too, just for recovery.
What's the highest dosage you have ever tried? And then what's the dosage that you suggest people trying with your product?
Okay, so very, very different. So I would say like this is not medical advice. Like that is a huge thing, I think, to preface. But for methylene blue, the most I've taken, I was experimenting with really high doses. I think towards 200 to 250 drops, which is about like maybe 100 to 125 milligrams, I think I've taken. So,
And okay.
So it's 2 drops is equivalent to a milligram. And then that is a very high dose. So just to preface, this is not something you should be taking every day. Like that's something that you can take once a week, because what happens is methylene blue will accumulate in the mitochondria and it will still have effects days later if you're taking high doses. The lowest dose in the research is 8 milligrams is what we see. So it's about 16 drops. So if you're a first timer taking something like 16 drops, I usually recommend a bit lower, like taking like 10 drops for your first time, just see how you feel, you know, just like test the waters a little bit. Because again, there's that individuality aspect. You just don't know how, some people are just hyper responders to things, and some people can take so much of it and just not really feel too much, but it's very rare. So yeah, it's good to start slow. So starting around 16 drops is a good kind of place, and you have at a low dose like that, you have a good allotment to just like build yourself up and just kind of see how you feel intuitively, and just like kind of scale from there depending on how you feel. But typically the range is 8 to 32 milligrams. I like to kind of keep that within 24 milligrams. So again, like going like as most as like say 50 drops on a daily basis is probably like your cutoff on a safe basis. And to even preface too is that like it should not be taken with any kind of serotonergic agents when you're taking high doses.
I was going to ask about that.
So any kind of like prescription SSRIs, SNRIs, MAO inhibitors, because methylene blue is a natural MAO inhibitor. So meaning, I'm not too sure if you're familiar, but MAO it stands for monoamine oxidase. And it's an enzyme that prematurely breaks down serotonin and dopamine in the brain. So if we can inhibit that, serotonin and dopamine are lasting a bit longer, we feel fantastic. Like we feel really good. It's actually been shown to help repair those receptors as well, like dopamine, which is really good.
Interesting.
So within that, you don't want to be taking it with like a ton of like serotonin agents, whether it's like 5-HTP, St. John's worts, SSRIs. There's no research to show that it interacts with those things.
What about
only
tyrosine?
SSRIs? Tyrozine's fine, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually one of my favorite kind of like nootropic sats, like stacks. I'll take tyrosine with methylene blue like all the time and feel absolutely amazing.
All right.
Yeah.
When can people see or feel results, would you say, and how long minimum to do a trial run? So if somebody at home's like, okay, this sounds really interesting, I really want to try this, buy a bottle, how long do you want them to commit to really see the full effects of it, to bare minimum?
Yeah, it depends on the dose and the person, but typically you feel the results like pretty quickly for the most part. And whether it's via brain fog, just kind of lifting, energy goes up a little bit, mood, stress resilience, like these things, like you start to feel like you're like, oh shit, like I feel pretty good, but that happens pretty soon. So you have to find your dose. That's not something that I can typically kind of help with, or anyone can really help with, because it's like, we can see what we find in the research. Just experiment. Yeah, it just experiment.
So how do you know if you've taken too much? Other than puking, maybe blue.
Yeah, so I think this is actually what I was saying earlier to you, is that I think in the 200 milligram range is where people can actually start experiencing, like, it comes through different excretions. So we excrete it mainly through the bladder. That's where it localizes. But if you're taking really, really high doses, then you can start to turn like your tears blue and like sweat, which is really crazy.
Like a Gatorade commercial.
Yeah, exactly it, man.
That's pretty cool.
So,
but like nausea, any of those things like that you should be careful for or watching out for?
not that I've really seen. I think like you can experience those things for sure in high doses, but I've never actually kind of like, so if we're looking in terms of the research, like a lot of times they're administered through IV drips. And when they're administered through IV drips, they're taken in very high amounts, but they're not done every day. Those things, typically the only side effects is like, it should not be taken with those who have liver conditions. Like if their liver's like say cirrhosis of the liver, like the liver's really struggling, kidney issues, like dialysis, things like that. It should not be taken. There's actually a specific genetic SNP for this too. I think it's called G6DP. It's a very, very small percentage of the population. I think it's about like maybe 3 to 5% of the entire population have this genetic SNP. But that's pretty much it. Some people report having like headaches at sometimes. It's not a very kind of common side effect, but the one thing that I've seen with that is that if you do experience that, then you got to hydrate, because that's increasing your energy demand. Your mitochondria are working overtime to produce more energy. Your poor mitochondria, like the bad ones that need to die off, will start to deplete, and then you're creating new ones. And in that place, like when your demand of energy goes up, you need more electrolytes. Like you need better hydration to really fuel that process. So that's typically one of the only side effects I've seen.
So you would say if you're going to go for a higher dose, let's say trying 50 or whatever, make sure you're hydrated.
Yeah.
Throughout that day.
Absolutely.
As a safety precaution.
Yeah. Increase electrolytes, more salts.
More northern hydration.
Absolutely. More potassium, more magnesium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then this stuff will definitely help kind of ease that. But other than that, like it's the only kind of like other side effect is blue pee. Like that's again where it localizes in the bladder and to be expelled. And you typically notice that like 12 hours after because it has like a half-life of 12 hours, 12 and a half hours.
Okay. And if you don't see it after 12 hours?
That is also a great question because there is not much research on this, but the leading theories on this is that your body is utilizing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really taking enough for your body to actually kind of fuel the change so you can start to take more. So if your pee is blue, it's good. It's a good sign because like you actually are using it and it's excreting it and localizing the bladder to be excreted. If you're not seeing any change in urine, then you have typically a better allotment to take more.
And what if it's like a core, like a mix?
Like a green?
Yeah, like a green.
You can definitely go a bit more for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Where is have you read any articles of like where methylene blue like has some good like promises, but not too much information yet in helping anything with the body?
Ooh, not much information yet.
But showing some good promises.
I've seen some good some good research on helping with like ischemic like strokes, like heart issues.
Oh wow.
That's really cool. That shows to be like a very promising area. I think the most promising area is it's research within Alzheimer's and dementia, which is really cool. It helps like kind of what they're seeing is it helps degrade tau tangles and beta amyloid plaques in the brain. So just cellular debris and junk. But the thing is with methylene blue is that it acts on the mitochondria. So it has an affinity to the mitochondria of the cell. And that's how we produce energy. It's the classic powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah.
And like, so as it does that, like we got to think like, where do we hold the most mitochondria? It's not in our muscles. Like our muscles will hold some, but we're not gorillas. You know, like you see a gorilla can just take a man and just like it's nothing, and just toss him across the room, right? Because they hold their mitochondrial density within their muscles. Mm-hmm. With humans, it's in their brain, it's in their heart, it's in their liver. Our retina actually holds the most density, but in terms of the amount, it's in our brain and our heart. So it's acting on the longevity organs, right? And it's again like the muscle holds a ton of mitochondria as well, but when we look at the most, heart and brain, that's like really, really important to understand. So like this is also a big reason why it kind of acts on things like cardiac issues and strokes and things of that nature, because you're legit repairing these tissues and you're going through a process called mitophagy, which is like autophagy, but for your mitochondria.
Okay. So
your mitochondria need to go through a death and rebirth cycle typically every 30 to 40 days. And when there's too much inflammation in the body, that gets blunted. And when that gets blunted and mitochondria can't replicate, then this is when we start to see the onset of disease. Mm-hmm. So we really need to kind of start replicating and refueling the mitochondria so then they can go through their natural like death and rebirth cycle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What other products do you want to bring to the market?
Oof. We have a few things, man. Like I'm actually going to kind of pass on this one because we have a few things that are very novel and it's like our baby right now. And we want to wait until we kind of have like the patents for it and stuff. Okay. But it's mainly within the gut space.
I was going to ask like at least what area.
Yeah. But we do actually have like a product that we're working on. I'm working on with a partner right now. So if he ever watches this, John Felix, he's very, very smart individual. And we're just working on a few gut health supplements together, but mainly in the space of symbiotics, like utilizing some HMOs, utilizing some strains of bifidobacteria to really just kind of zone in on basic gut health.
I was going to ask you, what do you think about VPC 157 for the gut health, for peptides?
So
what's your personal opinion on that?
I personally never tried it, so I can't speak with experience. From research, I've heard nothing but good things. Yeah. Like I think you've had like Liam Donovan on this podcast as well too. I think he talks a lot about BP 157, BPC. For me, I've typically not really big into peptides and NAD drips and things of that nature. The research is pretty cool. People just go through amazing benefits with these things. I think for me, I've always been on kind of like how to make this the most affordable for our clients. And
I think that's fair.
So peptides usually come at a high cost. Now, in terms of capsulizing them, it's a bit cheaper, I find, than actually.
A lot, and also you have to make sure the peptide is oral bioavailable, right?
Yeah.
Some of them aren't,
Mhm.
right? We're very lucky that PPC is, but there's a lot of peptides who are not bioavailable within.
Yeah, I would personally love to try. But the way I kind of see like a lot of times in the kind of optimization biohacking space is that sometimes you'll have people and be like, yeah, man, like just get this device. And you look at the device, it's like, oh, okay, $14,000. I'm like, no, I think I'm okay. I'm just gonna get like my feet on the earth, sun on my skin, and just kind of like deep breathing in a few different other aspects of health. And one of the things I like about methylene blue is that it's pretty cost affordable, but it also upregulates NAD.
Mhm.
So you're getting that effect of just increasing NAD naturally through just the effect it has on the mitochondria. So yeah, but it's pretty powerful stuff, man.
Okay, so I mean, we could talk forever, I feel, about things, but usually we end off a podcast in 2 questions. Okay, so describe yourself in 1 word.
Oh man. So again, I've talked about a lot about like plant medicine journeys and psilocybin and these things, and what came back to me was me being a kid. How it described me as a kid was very fiery, is because I didn't give a shit about authority. And if someone was an authoritative figure, I would really just rebel against it. I grew up in like a Catholic school, and there's a lot of like Jesus watching you and like things of that nature. Like I kind of mistaken him for Santa Claus, not actually, but like it was that kind of thing. Like he's always watching you. But it was me rebelling and not giving a crap about who said what. I'm just going to speak by mine. So as a kid, it was fiery, and I'm like, okay, I know I need to bring that back. But in terms of like when I see myself with like, I think my mom's passion. Like I see that kind of coming through, that kind of Italian, Sicilian kind of like, if there's something I really like, then I would say passionate. For sure. Yeah.
And what does alpha mean to you?
Alpha. Okay.
What does that mean to you?
That is a good question too, man. Like I've never really thought too much about it. I think when I think of alpha, I gravitate towards the inner masculine and inner feminine.
Mhm.
And I think the balance between the two. I think if we right now as a culture, we're kind of really in the space of like, you have to be alpha. And like, if you're not alpha, you're beta. And I think like we can't get confused with toxic or wounded, I should say, masculinity. We don't want to kind of like over amplify these things, but I think like in terms of alpha, like when I think of just the inner masculine, I think it means ownership. I think it means to be a safe space for an individual, to hear them, to have awareness, and then to be able to lead, to be a positive leader, to affect change. Because as we know, the best leaders would listen to their people, would take advice, and not act on egoic tendencies. And when we see people like in the space now of like calling, say, someone like Andrew Tate an alpha, he's not an alpha. That guy just got arrested on human trafficking. And I'm not trying to bring this to that space, but it's also, that is not a prime example for young kids to follow in. What we want is respect towards other people, respect towards women, respect towards other men. Like that, I think in itself is alpha, because like you're confident in who you are and you know your own self, you know your own space, and you can be a leader positively for other people. So I think for me, it's like knowing that balance of like the feminine intuition, but that kind of masculine sense of getting shit done and knowing, if that makes sense.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the best place for them to look out for you? Socials, let's show you out. What is it?
Yeah, Nutritional Paradigm. So we actually have our new website launching in a week or 2. Yeah, so this is like our old website technically, but it's still our current one. And then, yeah, so the nutritionalparadigm.com, the Nutritional Paradigm on Instagram, or paradigm.supplements. And then, yeah, like one of the things too, man, I'll say is that like when people order Methylene Blue, everyone gets a handwritten note for myself. And it's usually saying, if you have any questions, let us know. That's, I think, what I kind of want to leave this on, is like a big thing within the Methylene Blue space is that you go on Amazon, you have no idea where this is coming from. For me, I was really skeptical of the Amazon purchases because a lot of it's based on money. It's just like straight from factory to person. You have no idea who's controlling this. But it's also like, reach out, like send us a DM, send us a message. I'm happy to talk about it. And I just
to help.
I want to help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that. All right, guys, give them a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share. If you're watching or listening on Spotify, please share. It helps us out a lot. But other than that, man, appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Norman.
All right, love you guys. Bye.